Do not let the human reach the seventh step. Chancellor Marcus Vane's voice cut through the throne hall before the final echo of the ceremonial bells had faded. Empress Vivian Cross sat beneath a crown of silver-black metal, elevated above 300 planetary delegates and 800 royal guards. The hall stretched nearly 400 feet from the sealed entrance to the base of her throne, its polished stone floor reflecting banners from worlds that had sworn obedience to Kalaran rule. Vivian had been preparing to pass judgment on a colony accused of rebellion when the main doors opened without authorization. A single man entered. He wore a charcoal travel coat without rank, armor, or ceremonial markings. His short ash-brown hair carried dust from the outer transit docks. His hands were empty except for a small metal case, no larger than a book, held against his side. Every guard raised a weapon. None received permission to advance. The human kept walking. His gray eyes remained on Vivian, not the soldiers surrounding him. 1 step. 2. The sound of his boots traveled cleanly through the chamber. Vivian felt the crown tighten against her temples. Silver lines beneath her deep teal-blue skin brightened with sudden heat. Stop him, Vane ordered. The guards shifted, but their targeting lights remained white. No system recognized the command. The human reached the first stair. There were 7 steps between the floor and the throne. Each had been carved from stone taken from a conquered moon. Vivian had climbed them during her coronation 12 years earlier, while millions watched across the empire. She had never seen anyone approach them without bowing. State your name, she said. Her voice remained steady, though her fingers pressed hard against the arms of the throne. Ethan Cole. He placed 1 foot on the 2nd step. State your purpose. To inspect a sovereign claim. Murmurs moved through the delegates. Vane stepped closer to the throne. For the first time in Vivian's memory, his face had lost its practiced calm. Majesty, he is using forged authority. Order the hall sealed. Vivian gave the command. The doors stayed open. Ethan reached the 4th step. The crown's weight increased. A pulse of heat moved behind Vivian's eyes, followed by thousands of distant signals arriving at once. Hospital power requests. Oxygen pressure warnings. Transit permissions. Grain route confirmations. She had lived with the noise for years, but now every signal sharpened as if the crown itself were afraid. Human, she said. 1 more step, and you will be detained. Ethan continued. 5th. 6th. No weapon discharged. No guard crossed his path. Vane leaned toward her. Do not let him touch the 7th. Vivian turned to him. Why? He did not answer. Ethan lifted his foot. For 1 second, the entire throne hall seemed to hold its breath. Then he stepped onto the 7th stair. Every ceremonial light went dark. The banners stopped moving. The translation system fell silent. Even the distant hum of the ventilation vanished. Vivian heard only her own breathing and the faint mechanical click of the metal case in Ethan's hand. The crown became ice against her skin. Ancient symbols appeared across its surface, glowing white beneath the silver bands. A voice emerged from the throne itself, older than the Kalaran language and perfectly clear in every delegate's mind. Custodian acknowledged. Sovereign claim suspended. Vivian tried to stand. Her body did not move. The silver lines beneath her skin flared from her temples down her neck. Ethan stopped 1 step below her. He did not smile. He did not bow. He set the metal case on the 7th stair and looked at the crown above her trembling hands. Your Majesty, he said quietly, I came to collect the crown. The hall remained silent. His gaze shifted from the metal around her head to the pain she could no longer hide. Whether you leave with it is your choice. Vivian tried again to rise, but the throne held her in place with a pressure deeper than metal. The silver lines beneath her skin burned cold. Ethan Cole saw the movement and stepped no closer. Do not force it, he said. The crown has already tightened its neural locks. Marcus Vane lifted 1 hand toward the guards. Detain him manually. No one moved. Their weapons remained raised, but the command bands around their wrists had gone dark. Ethan looked at the nearest officer. Your systems are not disabled. They are waiting for lawful authority. Vivian's breath shortened. I am lawful authority. You were, Ethan said, until the crown recognized a superior claim. The words stirred the delegates more than any threat could have. Vivian raised her hand toward the metal around her head. Her fingers touched the lower rim. Pain flashed through her neck and shoulders, sharp enough to blur the hall. She pulled away. Ethan watched the reaction, his expression changing from caution to concern. "How long has it been fused to you?" he asked. "Fused," Vane answered before she could. "It is a ceremonial neural interface." Ethan ignored him. "Your Majesty, when did you last remove it?" Vivian searched her memory. Coronation night, 12 years earlier. She had worn it through every treaty, every hearing, every emergency transmission. Even during sleep, the crown remained linked through a thinner silver band beneath her hair. "It does not come off," she said. Ethan's gray eyes hardened, but not at her. That was not part of the original design. He crouched beside the metal case and released 2 clasps. Vane took 1 step forward. "Do not open that." Ethan paused. "You know what is inside." "I know humanity has no jurisdiction here." "Then you should not be afraid of a maintenance key." He opened the case. Inside lay a flat piece of pale alloy, smaller than his palm, surrounded by old seals and fiber contacts. The crown reacted immediately. White symbols raced across its surface. Vivian heard thousands of distant alarms bloom inside her skull. Oxygen stations requesting pressure corrections. Hospitals calling for power balancing. Freight routes asking permission to move. The Empire did not speak to her in words. It entered her as heat, weight, and pain. She gripped the throne until her knuckles darkened. Ethan saw it. "Every civic request passes through you. The crown prioritizes them." "No," he said quietly. "It is using you as a living relay." Vane moved between Ethan and the throne. "Enough. The Empress has governed through this system without failure." "How many hours does she sleep?" Ethan asked. Vane said nothing. "How many requests reach her nervous system every minute? How many emergency corrections are being routed through tissue instead of local control?" Vivian looked at the Chancellor. "Answer him." Vane's jaw tightened. "The burden is the price of sovereignty." Ethan stood. "That sentence has protected cruel systems for a very long time." Vivian forced her voice steady. "Can you remove it?" "Yes." Hope rose too quickly. Ethan extinguished it with the next words. "Not safely. Not yet." He activated the pale alloy key. A map unfolded above the 7th stair, revealing thousands of lights spread across Kalaran space. Hospitals, oxygen farms, water stations, transit gates, food depots. Nearly all were connected to the crown through a single central channel. "If I separate it now," Ethan said, "the throne loses command authority before the local systems know how to operate alone." "What happens then?" Vivian asked. "Hospitals switch to emergency reserves. Some oxygen stations freeze until manual control is restored. Freight routes stop. Not forever, but long enough to cost people what they cannot replace." Vane turned toward the delegates. "You hear him. The human came to collapse the Empire." Ethan looked at Vivian, not the room. "If collapse were my purpose, I would have taken the final step." She glanced above him. 1 stair remained between Ethan and the throne. "What happens if you do?" "The crown releases custodial access." "And me?" His silence answered before his words did. "I do not know what the integration has done to you." The hall felt colder. Vivian stared at the object she had believed was the symbol of her authority. Beneath its inner edge, thin silver threads disappeared into her skin. Not resting there. Growing there. "Why did no physician tell me?" she whispered. Ethan looked toward Vane. "Because a prisoner who knows the door exists eventually asks for the key." The pale alloy key unfolded above the 7th stair like a sheet of captured moonlight. Lines of ancient script spread through the air, then translated into modern Kalaran symbols 1 layer at a time. Vivian Cross felt the crown tighten again as if it recognized the record before she did. Ethan Cole touched 2 fingers to the alloy. A seal appeared. Not human. Kalaran. Older than the Empire itself. Marcus Vane stepped forward. "That archive is counterfeit." Ethan did not look at him. "Then you will have no objection to public verification." The throne hall walls awakened. Every planetary delegate received the same document at the same moment. 300 years earlier, during the atmospheric collapse that had nearly erased Kalaran civilization, human engineers had provided a planetary coordination network capable of balancing oxygen, water, food transport, and medical power across dozens of failing worlds. The crown had not been created as a symbol of rule. It had been designed as a temporary emergency interface. "No," Vivian whispered. The silver lines along her neck pulsed with the rhythm of distant life support stations. Ethan expanded the final clause. The Meridian Compact, he said. The device remains under Kalaran stewardship only while it protects local autonomy. If it is used to deny independent control of civilian systems, custodial authority returns to humanity. Vane turned toward the delegates. A forgotten treaty cannot override imperial law. Imperial law exists because this device kept your founders alive long enough to write it, Ethan replied. Vivian stared at the signatures. The first Kalaran leaders had agreed that no hospital, oxygen station, food depot, or water network would ever depend permanently on one ruler's command. Yet every glowing line above the stair showed exactly that dependence. Why was this removed from the archives? She asked. Vane's answer came too quickly. Because the compact became irrelevant once the Empire stabilized. Ethan opened a second record. Revision orders. Education edits. Restricted historical classifications. All approved through the Chancellor's office over generations. It did not become irrelevant, Ethan said. It became inconvenient. Vivian looked at the planetary delegates. Some were reading with shock, others with recognition. A representative from the outer mining systems raised her voice. Our oxygen controls have required royal approval for 60 years. Another delegate added, medical transport routes are suspended whenever local councils refuse imperial taxation. Vane lifted his hand. Silence. The hall did not obey. Ethan remained one step below the throne, surrounded by guards who no longer knew whose command was lawful. He carried no weapon. He needed none. The document had changed the room more completely than force could have. Vivian forced herself to breathe through the pressure behind her eyes. Why now, she asked. Why did humanity wait 3 centuries? Ethan looked at the crown. We did not know the network had been centralized this far. That is difficult to believe. The throne stopped sending external audit signals 82 years ago. Your government reported that local systems had achieved full independence. Vivian turned toward Vane. Did we? His silence lasted one breath too long. Ethan opened the case further. Beneath the alloy key lay decades of missing audit records, each replaced by a false confirmation. Someone kept telling Earth the crown was no longer essential, he said, while making every world more dependent on it. Vivian felt something inside her shift. Not trust. Not yet. But the shape of the fear changed. Ethan had not entered to conquer Kalaran. He had entered because Kalaran had violated a promise made when it was still too weak to survive alone. If humanity owns the device, she said, then take it. Ethan's expression did not change. Ownership is not the issue. You came to collect it. Yes. Then why are you still standing there? He looked past her toward the throne's hidden conduits. Because the original compact includes one more condition. A final line appeared. Custodial recovery must preserve civilian life and allow the current interface bearer a voluntary separation whenever possible. Vivian read it twice. Interface bearer, she said. That means me. Yes. So you cannot simply remove it. Not without becoming the kind of power the compact was written to prevent. Vane's composure cracked. Majesty, he is delaying because he cannot act. Ethan looked at him at last. No. I am delaying because I can. The crown pulsed hard enough to make Vivian's vision flicker. Across the hall, the 7th stair illuminated beneath Ethan's boots. The system offered him full custodial access. He did not take the final step. Your empire believes I came to claim authority, he said quietly. I came to return it. The difficult part is deciding whether you are willing to let it go before the crown decides for you. The crown answered before Vivian could. A surge of heat moved through the silver threads beneath her skin, and the throne hall disappeared behind a flood of distant alarms. She heard a hospital on a frozen moon requesting power. An oxygen station in the eastern systems reported falling pressure. 3 food carriers waited for transit clearance while a colony rationed grain. Each signal struck like a pulse behind her eyes. Vivian gripped the throne. Make it stop. Ethan Cole set the alloy key beside his metal case and lowered himself onto the 7th stair. He did not reach for the final step. I cannot stop it without separating the systems first. Marcus Vane moved toward the throne controls. Majesty, grant me emergency authority. I can stabilize the network. Ethan looked up. That is how she became the network. Vane ignored him and extended a command request. The crown offered Vivian a single confirmation. She hesitated. Ethan opened a local diagnostic instead. Hospital first, he said. His fingers moved across a pale projection, tracing an old route buried beneath 3 centuries of central commands. Which hospital? Vivian forced the words through clenched teeth. All of them eventually. This one now. A small blue light separated from the crown map. Ethan reassigned its power balance to the medical engineers who were already working there. The request vanished from Vivian's mind. The relief was so sudden that she almost gasped. You removed it. I returned it. Another signal followed. Then another. Ethan worked without ceremony, releasing an oxygen farm to its local station chief, a water purifier to a municipal council, a freight lane to civilian navigation. Each transfer reduced the pressure inside Vivian's skull by a fraction. You could take control of all of them, she said. Yes, but you are giving it away. Control is the problem. Vane's voice hardened. He is dismantling Imperial Unity one system at a time. Ethan continued working. If Unity disappears when people can breathe without permission, it was dependency. The delegates watched as lights spread outward from the central crown map. Once, every line had led to Vivian. Now small networks formed around hospitals, cities, and planetary councils. The Empire did not go dark. It became less quiet. Local operators began speaking directly to one another for the first time in generations. Vivian felt their relief before the crown filtered it away. How long will this take? She asked. To make separation safe? Hours, if no one interferes. Vane glanced toward the upper gallery. The hall door sealed. Heavy shutters covered the observation windows. A red symbol appeared above the throne. Succession protocol initiated. Vivian looked at him. What have you done? Protected continuity. You activated succession while I am alive. Your condition makes you vulnerable to outside influence. Ethan studied the new network layer. He is not trying to protect the throne. What is he doing? Vivian asked. Preparing it to replace you. The crown tightened. Silver light spread farther down her neck. Vane stepped into the center of the hall. The Empire cannot survive an Empress who surrenders authority to a foreign custodian. I have surrendered nothing, Vivian said. Not yet, Vane replied. But the system has already identified instability. Ethan opened a hidden channel beneath the succession protocol. Millions of new requests appeared, too many for Vivian to process. They were not emergencies. They had been generated deliberately. Every hospital, transit station, oxygen farm, and food depot was being forced to renew its dependence on the throne at once. Vivian's breath broke. Ethan rose from the stair and looked directly at her. He is flooding the crown until your body fails, or you give him emergency command. Vane smiled faintly, then advised her wisely. Ethan could have stepped onto the final stair. Full custodial authority waited inches away. Instead, he turned back to the hospital grid. Vivian, listen to me. It was the first time he used her name. The hall seemed to narrow around his voice. I can take the crown now, but the transition will be rough. Or I can keep separating the systems while you hold the network together. For how long? As long as you choose. Her hands trembled against the throne. And if I cannot? Ethan looked at the thousands of civilian lights still passing through her body. Then I will carry what I can before I take anything from you. The flood of false emergencies continued for 11 minutes before Ethan found the first altered command. It was buried beneath a medical request from a colony called Vera, where a respiratory outbreak had filled every clinic. Vivian remembered the order. She had approved emergency supplies and suspended transport fees. The record in front of her said something else. Imperial support authorized only after local administrators accepted permanent military supervision. I never added that condition, she said. Ethan isolated the command path. A thin red line appeared between her neural signature and the final order. No, he replied. Someone added it after your approval. Marcus Vane remained beneath the sealed gallery, his face unreadable. Administrative language is often required to ensure compliance. Vivian looked at him. Compliance with medicine? Ethan opened another record. 6 months earlier, she had ordered grain released to a drought-stricken world. The final command had reduced the shipment and required the colony to surrender control of its water network. Another followed. She had approved lower transit taxes for outer systems. The implemented order lowered them only for worlds that increased royal production quotas. One after another, her decisions appeared in 2 forms. What she intended. What the Empire received. How many? Vivian asked. Ethan's hand slowed. I do not know yet. Estimate. Thousands. The crown pulsed against her skin as if resisting the answer. Vivian closed her eyes. She remembered every report that claimed her reforms had failed. Every advisor who told her the colonies responded to mercy with defiance. Every time Vane had insisted that kindness without control invited disorder. The evidence now showed a different pattern. Her mercy had reached the outer worlds wearing chains. "You made them hate me," she said. Vane's voice stayed calm. "I preserved the authority necessary to keep them alive. You changed my orders. I translated idealism into governance." Ethan looked up from the archive. "You turned relief into leverage." Vane dismissed him with a glance. "Human philosophy is easy when human worlds do not depend on this throne." Ethan selected a command from 3 years earlier. Vivian had ordered the release of political prisoners after an uprising ended peacefully. The delivered order freed only those whose families signed loyalty contracts. "Did you translate this too?" he asked. Vane said nothing. Vivian felt the hall grow distant. The crown still carried millions of signals through her body, but one pain now stood apart from all the others. She had believed herself burdened by leadership. In truth, her suffering had been used to authenticate choices she had never made. "Why show me this now?" she asked Ethan. "Because separation is not only technical. Meaning, if I remove the crown while you still believe every command was yours, you will spend the rest of your life defending a prison out of guilt." Vivian looked at him. "And if the people never believe me, that is not mine to decide. You could prove what happened. I can expose the records. I cannot demand forgiveness on your behalf." The honesty hurt more than comfort would have. Vane raised both hands toward the delegates. "This is manipulation. He is isolating the Empress from her advisors, destabilizing confidence, and rewriting context." Ethan opened the command architecture to public view. Every alteration carried a timestamp, access route, and biometric seal. Vane's. Not one. Hundreds. Then thousands. Delegates across the hall began receiving copies from their own planetary archives. The representative from Vera spoke first. "Our clinics accepted military supervision because we believed the Empress required it." Another delegate added, "Our water councils were dissolved under her seal." Vivian's fingers trembled against the throne. "I did not order that." The words were quiet. No one interrupted. "I did not order any of it." Ethan moved one step closer, still below the final stare. "Then say what you did order." Vivian looked toward the delegates, the guards, and the distant worlds connected through the crown. Her voice shook once, then steadied. "Medicine without occupation. Food without surrender. Air without loyalty contracts. Transit without punishment." One by one, Ethan restored the original commands to the public record. Across the network, red lines separated from her silver signature. Vane's hidden layer became visible at last. The Chancellor watched his control unravel and reached toward the succession console. Ethan saw the movement. "Do not," he warned. Vane pressed the command anyway. The throne issued a new directive through Vivian's nervous system, colder than all the others. One outer world was marked for immediate oxygen restriction. A message appeared before her eyes. Confirm sacrifice to preserve imperial continuity. Vivian stared at the authorization seal, waiting for her consent. Then she understood what Marcus had been preparing her to become. Vivian did not confirm the sacrifice. The command remained suspended inside the crown, cold and patient, waiting for her consent. Far across Kalaran space, the outer world of Vera continued to breathe beneath a countdown only 3 people in the throne hall could see. Marcus Vane watched her from the succession console. Ethan Cole watched the oxygen grid. "If you refuse," Vane said, "the network will transfer authority to someone capable of preserving continuity." "You mean you?" Vivian replied. "I mean the Empire." Ethan opened the hidden protocol and traced its logic through the crown. "The transfer is automatic," he said. "If she rejects the order, the system declares her impaired and gives emergency control to the Chancellor." Vivian felt the silver threads beneath her skin tighten. "Can you stop it?" "Not without activating custodial access." "Then do it." Ethan looked at the final stare. "You have not chosen separation. I am choosing it now. Because a world is running out of time. Does that make the choice less real?" He studied her face. The pressure in the crown had turned the silver markings along her neck almost white. "Sometimes pressure reveals truth," he said. "Sometimes it only reveals fear." Vivian looked toward the distant blue light that represented Vera. Then ask me what you came here to learn. Ethan was silent for a moment. Do you want to keep the crown? No. Do you want humanity to take control of the network? No. Do you want Marcus removed because he betrayed you? Her golden eyes shifted toward Vane. Yes. She drew a careful breath. But not if removing him gives his power to someone else. Ethan's expression softened by a fraction. What do you want? Vivian listened to the signals moving through her body. Hospitals, water stations, freight crews, families waiting beneath oxygen towers. For 12 years, she had believed their dependence was proof of her duty. Now it felt like evidence of their captivity. I want every world to breathe without asking permission. The crown pulsed. The countdown over Vera reached 90 seconds. Vane stepped closer to the console. Beautiful words will not keep that planet alive. Ethan did not look at him. No, local engineers will. He reopened the Vera network and found 4 control teams already requesting manual authority. Their requests had been blocked by the throne for 17 years. Vivian stared at the records. They were ready. They were never allowed to prove it. Ethan released 1 hospital, then an oxygen farm, then a pressure station into local control. Each transfer removed another line from Vivian's nervous system. The countdown slowed. Vane tried to reverse the changes. The alloy key rejected him. You are fragmenting the Empire, he said. I am separating survival from obedience, Ethan replied. Vivian felt one more signal release from her mind. Relief moved through her body, followed by exhaustion so deep that the throne seemed to tilt beneath her. Ethan stepped onto the 6th stair again, but no farther. Why did you wait 3 years? She asked. I needed to know whether you were using the crown or being used by it. And what did you decide? Not until today. Vane gave a bitter laugh. He admits he came prepared to judge you. Ethan turned toward him. I came prepared to recover a dangerous system. Then he looked back at Vivian. Judging her would have been easier. What changed? She asked. Ethan brought up 3 years of hidden records. Vivian ordering reduced sentences. Vivian opening medicine reserves. Vivian refusing requests to isolate rebellious worlds. Vivian remaining connected through nights of neural pain because she believed disconnection would harm civilians. A tyrant protects the throne from the people, Ethan said. You protected the people from what you thought would happen without the throne. Vivian closed her eyes. I was still wrong. Yes. The answer was gentle because it was honest. But wrong and cruel are not the same thing. Vera's countdown reached 30 seconds. The final oxygen station requested independence. Ethan held the transfer open. This one must be authorized by the current interface bearer. Vivian lifted her trembling hand. The crown offered 2 choices. Preserve central command. Release local control. Vane spoke her title like a warning. Ethan said nothing. Vivian selected release. The signal vanished from her mind. Across Vera, oxygen pressure stabilized. The succession protocol activated anyway. White light gathered around Marcus Vane as the throne prepared to transfer control. Ethan looked at the final stair. Vivian looked at him. Now, she said, take the crown before it chooses him. The succession light climbed around Marcus Vane like a second throne. White lines connected his console to the crown, searching for a path through Vivian's nervous system. Ethan Cole stepped onto the final stair. The sound was small. The reaction was not. Every light in the hall turned pale blue. The guards' command bands unlocked. The sealed doors opened 3 inches and stopped. The crown released a tone so low that Vivian felt it in her ribs. Custodial access confirmed, the ancient voice said. Vane reached for the transfer seal. Complete succession. The system rejected him. He tried again. Complete succession under emergency law. Another rejection. Ethan placed the pale alloy key against the throne's lower conduit. The metal unfolded into thin branches of light that entered the floor and spread toward the planetary map. What are you doing? Vivian asked. Building somewhere for the network to go. You said it would take hours. It would, if he had not forced every system to reveal itself at once. Vane stared at the expanding map. You cannot distribute Imperial authority without Council approval. This is not Imperial authority, Ethan said. It is oxygen, water, medicine, and transit. None of them should have required a crown. The succession protocol changed tactics. A new message entered Vivian's mind. Preserve central stability by authorizing emergency extraction from Vera. The world she had just freed would lose oxygen reserves so the capital could maintain full power. It is asking again, she whispered. Ethan looked at the command reflected in her golden eyes. Do not answer yet. People are waiting. That is why it wants you afraid. The crown tightened until the silver markings along her temples burned white. Vane's voice softened. Majesty, authorize the transfer. Vera will survive temporary restriction. The capital holds 12 billion lives. Ethan opened the energy ledger. The capital has 6 weeks of reserve power. Vivian looked at Vane. You lied. I prioritized continuity. You manufactured a choice between people who were never competing. That is governance. Vivian felt something inside her become still. For 12 years, she had accepted pain as proof of responsibility. Now she understood that pain had only made manipulation easier to hide. She raised one trembling hand. The crown offered the command again. Restrict Vera. Preserve central authority. Transfer succession if refused. Ethan stood within reach of the throne, but he did not touch her. If I reject it, she said, the crown will try to choose him. Yes. If you remove it too soon, the network may fail. Yes. And you still believe this must be my decision. Especially now. Vane stepped forward. Enough. She is impaired. He ordered the guards to remove Ethan. No one moved. The nearest officer lowered her weapon and disconnected her command band. Others followed, not in rebellion, but in refusal. The sound of metal clasps opening traveled across the hall. Vivian looked at the delegates. One by one, planetary representatives opened local control requests. Hospital directors, oxygen engineers, transit coordinators, food councils. Thousands of people were ready to carry what the crown had forced through one body. They will make mistakes, Vivian said. Yes, Ethan replied. So did the throne. They may disagree. That is what choice sounds like. The command timer reached 10 seconds. Vivian selected refusal. The crown sent a shock of cold through every silver thread beneath her skin. Her breath caught, but she remained conscious. I will not take air from one world to protect my chair, she said. The succession protocol surged toward Vane. Ethan pressed the alloy key fully into the conduit. Then release what you still hold. Vivian opened every remaining civilian system to local authorization. The map exploded into thousands of independent lights. Hospitals accepted their own power grids. Oxygen farms took direct control. Freight captains selected routes without royal permission. The Empire did not vanish. It began speaking in many voices. Vane's transfer line weakened. You are ending Kalaran unity, he said. Vivian looked at the worlds, choosing to remain connected even after the command chains disappeared. No, she replied. I'm finding out whether it ever existed. The silver threads beneath the crown began to loosen. One lifted from her temple like a strand of light. Then another. Ethan held the network steady while the throne resisted. Stay with me, he said. Vivian met his eyes. Take it. The crown opened along a hidden seam, and for the first time in 12 years, cool air touched the skin beneath it. The crown did not come away all at once. It released Vivian one silver thread at a time, each strand lifting from her skin with a faint pulse of light before folding into Ethan Cole's alloy key. He kept one hand against the throne conduit and the other beneath the opening metal, steady but careful, as though he were holding something alive that had forgotten how to let go. The first civilian networks had already separated. Hospitals answered their own engineers. Oxygen stations balanced local pressure. Freight routes adjusted without waiting for a royal seal. Yet millions of smaller systems still moved through the crown, searching for a central command that no longer existed. Do not pull, Ethan said. Vivian's fingers tightened around the throne. I am not. Good. Another thread lifted from her temple. Cool air touched the mark beneath it. For 12 years, she had believed the constant pressure was simply the weight of duty. Without it, the silence inside her mind felt larger than the throne hall. Marcus Vane watched the planetary map fracture into independent clusters. This is not liberation, he said. It is disintegration. Ethan released a water network to a coastal council 3 systems away. Then why are they still connected? Across the map, local systems began linking to one another voluntarily. Medical stations shared power forecasts. Oxygen farms exchanged reserve capacity. Transit crews reopened routes based on need instead of royal priority. No line returned to the crown. No world asked Marcus for permission. Vivian watched the new network form without her. They stayed, she whispered. Most of them, Ethan said. Some will leave. You say that as if it does not matter. It matters. It just does not belong to you. The truth should have wounded her. Instead, it loosened something deeper than the silver threads. She had called the Empire united because every world had been forced to answer one voice. Now those same worlds were choosing which connections to keep. Their cooperation was slower, noisier, real. Marcus reached for the succession console again. Emergency authority remains vested in the Chancellery. The system displayed his request publicly across every delegate channel. Local councils received the full record of his altered orders before deciding. Rejections returned from one world, then 20, then hundreds. You cannot govern by vote during a systems crisis, he said. A hospital director answered through the open network. We have been governed by delay for 80 years. A transit coordinator added, our routes are stable. An oxygen engineer from Vera reported full pressure and independent reserves. Marcus's command line dimmed until only his personal console still recognized him. You have conquered them with dependency on human technology, he said. Ethan looked at the alloy key absorbing the final command layers. I am removing the human technology they were forced to depend on. The last major network separated from Vivian's nervous system. The crown opened wider. Her shoulders dropped as thousands of distant signals left her body. For one frightening second, she felt empty. Then she heard the hall itself. The quiet movement of delegates. The soft hum of restored ventilation. Her own breath entering and leaving without an empire attached to it. Ethan lifted the crown free. The metal resisted once, tightening around a final hidden thread beneath Vivian's hairline. He paused immediately. There is one more connection. Marcus's face changed. Ethan saw it. What does it control? Vivian asked. He traced the thread into the throne architecture. A concealed succession channel appeared, linking the crown directly to Marcus's console. It had not carried civilian systems. It carried authorization. Every time Vivian had suffered through the network, the crown had strengthened his emergency claim. He was using you to build his inheritance, Ethan said. Marcus stepped back. That interpretation is false. Vivian looked at the years of accumulated authority beneath his seal. Remove it. Ethan pressed the alloy key against the final thread. It dissolved into white light. Marcus's console went dark. The crown came free. Vivian did not fall. Ethan had already shifted the throne supports beneath her, allowing the seat to lower until her feet touched the floor. He placed the crown inside the metal case. Around the hall, delegates waited for darkness, panic, or collapse. None came. The planetary map remained alive, brighter now with thousands of smaller centers. Marcus stared at it. You have taken the Empire. Ethan closed the case. No. Vivian rose slowly without metal pulling her back. The faint silver marks along her temples remained, but they no longer burned. Ethan looked at the worlds, choosing their own connections. A conquest takes choices away. I returned them. One by one, the delegates remained in their seats. Not because a crown commanded them, because they had chosen not to leave. 4 months later, the throne hall no longer had a throne. The 7 black steps remained, but the elevated seat had been removed and replaced by a circular table wide enough for representatives from every Kaleran system. No chair stood higher than another. The banners still hung from the vaulted walls, though each world had chosen whether to keep its old imperial colors or display something new. Vivian Cross entered through the same doors Ethan Cole had once crossed alone. No crown rested on her head. The silver marks at her temples had faded to thin lines, pale reminders of where the neural threads had lived beneath her skin. She wore a simple black and silver diplomatic uniform without royal insignia. No guard announced her. No delegate stood unless they wished to. She took an open seat between a medical coordinator from Vera and a transit representative from the outer colonies. The network report began without waiting for her permission. Oxygen stability had increased across 83 worlds. Medical transport delays had fallen by half. Several systems had left the Alliance, but none had been threatened or punished. Others had joined under a new charter requiring local control of every civilian service. The Union was smaller than the Empire had been. It was also the first version no one had been forced to remain inside. Marcus Vane faced a public tribunal under the same legal protections he had once denied to colonial councils. His command records were preserved. His defense was heard. His access to public systems remained suspended, not by Vivian's order, but by a vote from the people who operated them. When the session ended, Vivian found Ethan waiting near the 7th step with the metal case in his hand. His charcoal travel coat had been repaired at one shoulder. He looked exactly as he had on the day he entered, except the dust on his boots now came from Kailerin Gardens rather than transit docks. "You are leaving," she said. "The custodial review is complete. Humanity wants the crown returned. Humanity wants it stored where no government can use it." Vivian glanced at the case. "Will anyone study it? Engineers will study how to prevent another one." The answer made her smile. "That sounds very human." Ethan looked toward the circular table, where 2 delegates were already arguing about water rights without asking a ruler to settle the dispute. "So does that." Vivian stepped beside him. The 7th stair no longer triggered security locks. Children visiting from a public school climbed over it while their teacher explained what the hall had once been. No one stopped them. "Did you expect to take my crown when you came here?" she asked. "Yes." "Did you expect me to survive without it?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. "I hoped you would." "That is not the same as expecting." "No." She looked at the empty place where the throne had stood. "I thought losing power would feel like becoming less. And now I hear fewer voices inside my head and more voices in the room." Ethan nodded. "That is usually how freedom sounds." Vivian's golden eyes moved to the metal case. "What will happen to the crown?" "Nothing. Nothing. It will not command, authorize, punish, or decide. It will become an object." She considered that. A quiet ending. Power rarely understands quiet until no one answers it. The departure doors opened beyond the hall. Ethan lifted the case. Vivian did not offer him a title, a medal, or a place on the council. She understood him well enough now to know he would refuse all 3. "Ethan," she said. He turned. "You came here to collect something that was never mine." "Yes." "What did you leave behind?" He looked past her at the delegates seated as equals, the open doors, and the children walking freely across the 7th step. "What was always yours?" Then he left the hall alone. Vivian returned to the table and took her place among the others. No bell announced her arrival. No one bowed. The empty space where the throne had stood said more than any crown ever had. He had come to collect her power, but the only thing he truly took was the chain that had taught an empress to mistake suffering for duty.